Uplifted.
Yo, it's Mike Sick here at the HQ, Live Hip Hop Daily. And right now, man, I'm sitting with my partner right here, Supastition, fresh off the High Off Life freestyle. Smashed it. Thank you, sir, for being here. Appreciate you, man.
Thank you, man. Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here and talk to you.
Yeah,
as
man.
always, man.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
You know, I got a lot of respect for you, man. I let you know every time I see you.
You
too,
do, and I appreciate that. The feeling's mutual, man, for sure. Definitely respect your pen game, your family game, your life game is always on point, man.
Thank you.
No doubt. Let's talk about that, man. Like it's a balance. Like you have a family. You know you've been an OG. You've been doing this for a minute. The bar. You never slacking on your craft. I see you getting into production. You know, even with the whole album. What's that balance like, man? How do you execute around?
It's tough to balance, but I had to come to a realization that I can't do everything I want to do when I want to do it. When you're dealing with other people and you got family and stuff like that, because I'm so used to being able to just sit down and just write song after song after song. Like in my early years and 20s, you can't do that. So now I just set aside like one day that I could really just work on music or whatever, which is usually like a Sunday or whatever. But yeah, it's trying to balance family, work, and music. And for the first time in my life, it seems like I'm balancing all three. I don't know how the hell I'm doing it, but I'm making it. I'm doing it. Bro.
Yeah, you in your rhythm. You in your rhythm, man.
Indeed.
That's what's up. So tell us, where you're originally from, and how'd you get into music, and maybe some milestones that got you to this point where you're at right now.
Yeah, originally I'm from Greenville, North Carolina. That's a small city outside of Raleigh, North Carolina, towards like the eastern part of North Carolina. We didn't have a major hip hop scene at that time. We had, my crew and some other people. But we did have East Carolina University, and there used to be a college radio station. They used to come up and let us freestyle and do things like that. And we had a spot called Peasants that we used to always frequent. But then after I graduated from high school, I ended up moving to Charlotte because it was a bigger market and things like that.
Okay.
So I kind of stayed in North Carolina for a long time, just kind of building up the scene and things like that. I got my first record deal when I was probably like 18 years old.
Wow.
I signed a terrible contract with like Davey DMX. He was like one of Run DMC's producers and all that, man. So, it was a label out of Queens. But I learned from it. Man, I signed possibly the worst contract ever, but when I came out of it, like, I lost my name, I lost my rights and everything, but when I came out as Supastition, like, my knowledge on the music industry was impeccable. And now to this day, I own 99% of all my music and everything. So I was like, I'll never get in that again.
So you needed that
saying?
early.
Yeah, I got that early in the game, man. Like,
wow. Sign, like, did you get put on the road? You ever be in a situation like, this is gonna be life? This is a career? Like, anything wild or crazy happened as a youngin'?
Well, see, when I got signed, this was back in, not even to show my age, but it was like in the late 90s, the mid to late 90s.
Yeah.
So me being from North Carolina and rapping the way that I do, they had no idea what to do with it, because at that time, really all, not all New Yorkers, but most of them knew was Outkast.
Right.
So they was just like, all right, we want to put you on some country shit. And I'm like, well, that's really not me. I'm a country boy, but we grew up listening to all type of shit. Like North Carolina's in the middle of Virginia and South Carolina and all of that. So I know they tried to stick me in a group with some random dudes that was on the label. And so I was like, I don't want to do this. So I did like one posse cut, got on the track and dissed everybody on the song. And it was just like, yo,
he went last. Stop the beat.
So I was like, yo, I knew my music wasn't coming out. I was like, all right, I got to do what I got to do or whatever, man. So, but ever since then, I just been on my grind. I remember just meeting people early in my teenage years, like Positive K and Bahama-D, and they're telling me like, yo, you're dope, you really have something or whatever. And they probably don't even remember it, but when that's the first people that tell you that you're dope, it always sticks with you and resonates with you.
That's what's up. Has anything come full circle? Like anybody that you met back then? Like, do you ever have those moments?
Oh yeah, now it's almost too many to name. You know what I'm saying? Just hearing like Premier playing just my records and stuff like that, and just knowing who I am. Because I remember my very first single, I was just, I was talking about, I would love to just get a beat from Premier. That would be like my bucket list thing. But now, I've met like Premier, beat miners, just not even the name drop, but it's just mad people that I respect. Like I've done songs with KRS, different things like that. So it's like, man, all of that comes full circle. And to be honest, when I got in the game, all I wanted to do was just one album. I was like, I just want to make an album. And once I got in, it was just like everything else to me is in the green. Everything is positive after that. So, it's a blessing, bro, to be able to. I've been to 13 countries, 36 states. You know what I mean? And that was before I turned 30, man. So
Wow,
yeah.
that's what's up. So let's talk about the international travels, man. Is it let's demystify hip hop overseas. Is it is it like they say it is? Like, yo, you gotta go overseas. People can go crazy. Was it like that, or was it like just what was the feeling like?
So it was like that during my early years of going there because at this time, and I realized, and I had a conversation with people overseas, it was that the reason why they have so many, not even to say better DJs and producers, is that one thing that's hard to mimic is American swagger. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so when a lot of their hip hop scene started, they looked at a lot of their rappers as being kind of corny. So they gravitated more to the American artists. But now, like 10, 15 years later, like they have their own scene. Like, to be honest, if you asked me 15 years ago, I'd say, yo, go, that's the place to be. Now I'm honestly say they don't need us.
Right.
Like, like they've got artists out there that are really doing their thing or whatever. But one thing I will say is if you build a fan internationally, it doesn't matter if your single's hot or not. Like, they still gonna support you 10 or 15 years later. And then you go to a show, they always want the vinyl, and it seems like they're more interested in just getting your catalog. I think for a lot of times, just, in the US, people are fans of your album. Like, you can have this one album that everybody loves, and it could be 15 years later. It's almost like Nas and Illmatic, like people still waiting for Nas to do another Illmatic, and it's just like, bro, that's not gonna happen. Can you imagine all the albums that he released and everybody comes up to him like, yo, I love Illmatic, and he's like, yo, that's him when he was young and kind of inexperienced or whatever, but he's got more knowledge now. He feels like he's more skillful, so. It's kind of like a double-edged sword.
When it goes into crafting an album, a song, or let's say an album, since we're talking about album, like where's the line or where's the balance of saying like I'm just gonna do what I want to do regardless, and then the line between that and living up to the standard that you set for yourself and having to live up to expectations that people have of you.
I got you. Yeah, previous records, especially when I was just dealing with a lot of labels and things like that, like you would always go in and say, this is my self-expression, this is my art. But all of that changed when somebody cut you a check. I mean, you may not realize it, but somebody cut you a check and give you $50,000 and say, all right, do you. Now you're thinking, all right, cool, I can do me, but I got to make this money back. Or you got a label telling you like, all right, you need more guests. You need something that appeals more to like West Coast or something like that. Right. So, I mean, it's always like somebody dabbling in your music. But since I've been independent and kind of just doing it myself, it's 100% self-expression. And now, like the new shit, I'm producing a lot of it. So it's like that's 110% for me, Yeah,
that's how.
But it's no pressure. So, and the thing is, like I tell people, like, well, I sell 10 albums or 10,000 albums. I'm still going to work on Monday morning, so there's no pressure on me.
No doubt. Let's talk about that. That aspect. You got into producing. I remember the first Instagram post you showing the machine. You was like, "Yo, I'm about to get this popping." I'm like, "Okay, no doubt." And I had no doubt in my mind. Did not doubt you one bit. You know what I mean? Yeah. Now here you are, producing most of the album, right? With the new one?
Yeah, I did every song on the new album. Okay, sick. Every song. Sick. I started producing in 1999, 2000 on my very first album, 7 Years of Bad Luck, but I wasn't sure if my beats were good, so I used like a nickname, like a producer name called Sarcastic. If you look at the credits, like that's me producing all of it. And it was like when I first learned how to make beats or whatever, man. But I had just been around so many different people. Like, shout out to my man Knots. Like, I was just seeing him how he freaked the machine and just different cats, man. Stolen Drums or whatever, who lives right up the street from me. DiBiase. I started hearing these cats, and a lot of times in my previous albums, I would give producers samples and drums, like, yo, put this together. And at that point, I'm like, dog, I might as well do this shit myself, And producing is just like rhyming in the sense that it's about getting it from your brain and your ear into those speakers the way that you want, or into that machine or whatever. So, and that's what makes it easier, because you got a lot of DJs, a lot of rappers that sit down and they try to make beats and they're fucking horrible. It's like they can hear it, but they just can't get it to translate into what they want. You know what I'm saying? So
no doubt. So with learning machine, how long did it take to get it clicking once you started, chiseling at the Iceberg?
Probably about 3 months. It was like a 3-month learning curve. Because we don't read no manuals, man. Like, we go online and
going since that ASR 10 manual, I haven't read one since.
Right, you go on YouTube and watch a 15-year-old show you how or whatever. Or I've just watched other people just how they freak the machine like that. And every day I came home, I'm one of those people that if I want to learn how to do something, it doesn't matter if it's like photography, videography, or whatever, like graphic design. Once I tell myself that I want to learn it, I'm not stepping back until I learn it. And I feel like I'm comfortable with it. So, and I understand and I respect that everything has a learning curve. And that's what I had to do with production, you know. And that's why it took me a while to really produce anything. I started back producing almost like, 2 years ago. And I was like, I never want to just rhyme over my first beats. You know, you got to get comfortable with it and sit with it a little bit. So,
yeah. Got you. So if you had to give anybody some advice or anybody learning production, producing, maybe in particular with the machine, what is the one thing they can do, or what can they do to get it out of their head into the machine? Like what technique or what approach helps make that actually happen for it to come together? Because that's the thing that deters people the most, is that they'll do something, it's like, that's not what I wanted to do, so then they stop. So other than persistence, what would your advice be?
What I would say is that there's going to be a lot of days that you sit down on that beat machine and you have to just practice. Like every beat that you sit down might not be a joint that you're going to save, you know, or I mean, I would save it, but every joint isn't going to be a banger. Right. And it's like, if you make 40 beats, you might have 5 or 6 good ones or whatever. So just crank out more, because the thing is, cats will make 10 beats and 8 of them are good, and now the pressure's on them to make, 8 more bangers or whatever. And that's what I realize, is that the more you work on it and the more you do it, then that's when the joints start to come or whatever. You know what I'm saying?
Got you. So just persistence every day.
Yeah, just persistence every day. And like I said, you tell yourself, all right, it's almost like a basketball player. Like you can go outside and shoot shots. You're not in the game, you know? Like at the end of the day, that might not be a beat that you actually use for something, but you learn something new every single time or whatever, you know? Yeah.
For sure.